Hello, Pauline Rowe here with the latest life writing video, and today we're going to be thinking about journeys. The idea of a journey is such a central feature of the way we tell stories or think about stories in terms of quest or travel or psychological journey, that it seems a suitable theme and idea for our life writing. I want to start in our usual way with a little bit of a warm-up, so make sure that you have your pen or pencil and paper to hand. We make practical journeys, we make spiritual journeys, we go on journeys to other countries which are more like adventures than our normal daily activities. But what I thought we'd start with is a very simple idea of a local or familiar journey to you. And it may be that this is a journey you've missed of late because of lockdown and because of the pandemic. But I want you to think about a journey that you're very, very familiar with, even if you go back in memory and it's a journey to school or a journey to the local shop that is no longer there, or just a walk to the bus stop or a trip to your library. Just a very straightforward everyday journey. And I want us to take 5 minutes or so to do some writing, and I want you to, in your mind, take that journey and observe what you see along the way. And it may be a useful point to also think about the weather. Are you walking or taking the journey in the summer, in the winter, in the autumn? That may help you to create the atmosphere of the place that you are walking or you're travelling to. I'm thinking about walking, but it may be a train journey or a bus journey. Okay. So if you start, I'll give you a very simple prompt to start with. And it will simply be, I set out on my journey. So just start with that simple phrase, and we'll keep writing for 5 minutes or so. And if you have trouble just writing fluently, just jot down things that you can observe, things that are there on your path, names, anything that you might see or observe or think about. Okay. Or are you alone, or are you with somebody? So all those kind of factors, including the weather, including the season, the time of day. So I set out on my journey, and we'll write now for 5 minutes. Right, okay. So you should have the idea of a familiar journey, even, as I said, if it's from memory. I wonder whether you concentrated on who you were with, the weather, the actual practical steps of the journey. Whatever you've written, I want you to keep that to one side. It's something you may want to go back to with this week's exercise. I'll just read you what I've written. It doesn't get very far actually, but I wasn't thinking about this particular thing, but anyway. I set out on my journey up the Brew next to our house to walk to the bus stop with my sister Debbie. It's a cold November fog and we can't see far ahead of us. My hands get so cold on these dark, dreary mornings. We walk to the top of the Brew and then turn right opposite Crowwood Park and keep going past our Auntie Winifred's and Uncle Dave's towards Bancroft Road and the bus stop. It's 7:50, it's cold, I'm 7 and our Debbie is 9. She's in Mr. Kennedy's class. My teacher is Mr. Lenner. That's as far as I got. So, not brimming with exciting, adventurous detail, but it was very clear, actually, when I thought about a journey and the steps, and even thinking about the people who lived around. Didn't mention Mrs. White, but people that are there somewhere but forgotten. And that cold, there's nothing like that cold, and we don't seem to have fog now, like we did then. I don't know, probably to do with coal and pollution. But anyway, you should have a bit of free writing. You've warmed up a little bit, and I want to go back to the idea of journeys. How key this is in literature as well. If we think about foundational texts like Homer's Odyssey, or even more regional, more English texts like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. The idea of a journey and travel is an exciting one to work with for our own writing, but we don't have to work with grand adventures and themes. We can just think about the journeys we do as part of our everyday lives. So, as usual, I want to share some writing with you that might take you into a more imaginative direction. The first is an extract from a beautiful book from Robert Macfarlane's Wild Places. If you have a great interest in the natural world, this is something that I hope I've not lost the page. Yes, no, that's great. I want to read you not a continual extract, but some pieces from a few pages, and the details, as usual, will be on the handout. And this is from his chapter called Tour. Okay, a tour is like the Tour of Glastonbury. It's a point up on a hill. It may be it's a focal point. It can be a building. It may be rocks. Okay, so just listen to how Macfarlane creates this sense of place and quest and journey. On a day when the wind was buffeting rooks from the trees, I went to the Hope Valley in the Peak District to see my friends John and Jan Beattie. I wanted to bring my journeys to some sort of end, and it seemed right to do so, in the company of those with whom they had begun. Besides, John had promised to take me to see the snow hares. And there's a beautiful section then on the environment on the snow hare. And then he says, he also knew where the snow hares lived. The hare had long been my totem animal, and I had been pleased to find hares like the hawks appearing throughout my journeys. I had seen them all over the country, hunched discreetly in their forms on orford nests, sitting attentively on the turned fields of Suffolk, and scooting over the snow slopes of Meal Nan Tarmachan and the karst shires of the Burren. They had been there too, less expectedly, in the name of Edward Thomas's First World War training camp, and in the hare's ear-flower I had seen out on the Dengie Peninsula. The hawk and the hare, they were the perfect pair of familiars for my map making. The hawk turning its sentinel circles in the air, looking down onto the land. The hare knowing the land peerlessly at ground level, able to move faster over it than anything else earthbound. My sleeping outs in cups and dips of rock and earth and snow. This was the habit of the hare. But the pull to the high ground, to the summits and the ridges, to look down upon the land, this was in mimicry of the hawk. He writes so beautifully. He writes so beautifully about those creatures, and they are very physical quests for him in his journeys over of land and forest and mountain and lake, and the wild, and seeking the wild places. But they're also beautiful metaphors of human experience in terms of the hawk, the aspirational hawk, and although the fastest creature, the earthbound hare. And this idea of something magical and mystical as well about the snow hare. So he roots his writing in the natural world and in creatures and in geology, in landscape, and that's the nature of his journey. And it's something you may want to read and feel drawn to. He has lots and lots of beautiful books that you could find and read. So that's one kind of approach to a journey within the natural world. And if it appeals to you, I would encourage you to start thinking about your own experiences of journey in the natural world. Okay? And maybe just take a minute or so to jot down some places that you have travelled or journeyed to that may, even if they've not involved a quest for creatures in a kind of naturalist spirit, but places that you've been to that of the natural world, and they could be countryside, gentle rural countryside, it could be coastal environment, it may be in wider Europe. So if you want to jot down just a few places that you may want to think about in terms of the natural world that you've journeyed to or visited. Okay. Okay, so you might have jotted down just a few ideas or things that might prompt further writing. So mine, I've jotted down Seatoller, the Lake District camping, Lerici, Italy, Easter, and Anglesey, the beach covered in oil. A very long time ago when I was a little girl, we went on holiday, but one of the beaches, it was just covered in horrible oil pollution. So they're the three things that have just come into my mind. Okay, now in contrast with the rural or naturalist traveller, there's a wonderful idea, and I know this is an idea that appeals to very much to some of you, and that's the idea of the flaneur, or the flanners, as Lauren Elkin named her wonderful book about female flaneur, the flaneurs. And there's some beautiful writing here and engagement with city walking in London and in Paris, and just absolutely beautiful writing, lovely book. But I just thought I would share some extracts with you from this. In Paris, when the city workers dig into the streets, it's as if they give passers-by access to long-finished, long-covered-over revolutions. How deep would they have to dig to reach the paving stones they replaced in after 1848, after 1830? Looking over their city, Parisians tend to write more about what's disappeared than what's still visible. Old Paris is no more, a city changes more quickly, alas, than the human heart, wrote Baudelaire. Alas, old Paris is disappearing with terrifying rapidity, sighed Balzac. Louis Aragon, the surrealist poet, composed an elegy to the Passage de l'Opera, built in 1822, but scheduled to be demolished in 1825 to make room for the Boulevard Haussmann. And then Guy Debord, in his autobiography Panegyric, lamented, "To see the banks of the Seine will see our grief, Nothing is found there now save the bustling columns of an anthill of motorised slaves. When Baudelaire sighs, alas, the form of a city changes faster than the human heart, in a way, he's talking about a rate of change the human heart can't measure. Forces of change that go beyond individual capacity. Traces of the past city are somehow traces of the selves we might once have been. And that takes us to think about our own city or town streets where we walk. Do we walk our local area in that spirit of study and observation and adventure, I wonder? Now what I want you to do now is to think very simply of a road that you might like to walk in. It could be in Liverpool city centre, it might be more locally. And again, I want you to think about some real aspects of the place, of its changing nature, of its history, about what is visible, but also what isn't apparent, what is invisible. So just a minute or so, jot down a few ideas. They could include names of streets, or names of local parks, or just the detail of your walk. It might be shops if you're doing a quick city walk. So just jot down a few ideas, okay? Okay, just a few ideas to get your mind working and thinking. I've just done something very simple. I've just jotted down walk to Newsham Park. Shops different, lots of lost shops, changes, pubs, nail and beauty bars, the closed police station, busy traffic, dogs on leads. So again, just some impressions, just some kind of ideas that, the idea of the closed police station might be interesting in terms of a walk or something, that might happen in a busy changing city. But again, there's just a few ideas there. Okay. So you might be buzzing with ideas of things to write, and I hope you are. What I would like you to do for our writing exercise this week is to write about a journey. And you've got a choice. You can write about a local, familiar journey, but I want you to look at it with really renewed eyes, either in your imagination and memory, or go out and walk the journey. I want you to notice some new things, not just what you think you know, but really think about it in terms of the unusual. Alternatively, you might want to write about a more distant trip or a more significant journey, whether that's to a foreign place or a longed for destination, or a trip that you took in pursuit of something that you were doing for yourself. You choose. So either your local journey or your more distant and adventurous journey. And I'd like you to try and write at least 500 words if you can. As usual, I would be delighted to see you writing, and you can send it to me at Pauline Rowe writer@gmail.com. And I'm going to finish with one of my favourite pieces of writing on journeys, and I'll just read the beginning, and it's a poem that you can find yourself and read. It deals with very strange, dark, deals with memory, with Christendom, with mystery, with exoticism in some ways. But it's at the heart of it is a story. And it's the journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty, and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. I'd encourage you to read the rest of the poem, The Journey of the Magi by T.S. Eliot. And good luck with your writing this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.